Greetings and salutations, and thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of MiThyme Motivation. Of course, this is your host, Tasha Ryder, and I hope all is well, and my prayers are with you and your family during these intense times. As with all things, I also want to say thank you to all the essential workers out there and all the families that are making sacrifices daily to support all the efforts that we're making globally to survive and thrive during these intense times. So let's get started. Today's episode is about time wasters, and I want to talk about this particular topic because I believe, first of all, it's a pet peeve of mine for people not to waste your time. As a young person, I thought that time was one of your largest assets. It's something you cannot get back. And so over my younger and youthful years, I've always been in this mindset of being mindful and intentional about the people that are allowed in my circle to spend time with and or not to spend time with, and or assess how much time you're spending doing various tasks or perhaps activities and things of that sort. So I was very intentional about where I place my time because I thought, wow, I could get a lot more done if there was about 12 more of me. Is anyone else out there thinking like that, or has anyone out there ever thought about what if there were 12 more of you in your life? Then I began to think, as I became more spiritually activated, that really I have just what I need to do everything that I need, and I can get everything I need done in the timeline that God has allotted me to get those things done in. So that was more of a purpose-driven life for me, to not just be cognizant of the time, but also aware of where you place your time. And the world began to change in a very great way. And I believed that I was making the most powerful impact in my life. And I was no longer upset or frustrated or flustered about my time. Some of the time wasters that I've experienced in the past was having idle chitter chatter with people that have no concept of time, or perhaps spending time with people who their today looks like 3 months from now, and their 3 months ago looked like their today. So unfortunately, those individuals were moved out of my life because the universe allotted that time to be so. In other words, I no longer had time for those particular individuals. And I know that sounds harsh. It's not that we weren't connected. I just no longer spent that type of time. I no longer placed as much energy in those conversations. I still had love for those individuals, and I still wish them well and joy and peace and an abundant life. However, they were no longer a part of where I would place my time. So in that, many people as professionals have calendars, and unfortunately, it's a roadside service typically in a lot of offices that I've visited during the course of my professional life, where you walk in, you're like your name and your number, take a seat, and someone will see you in the beginning, kind of like in a moment, kind of like, and this reminds me of our health healthcare system. And so in my mind, the healthcare system is a roadside service. And that's different than I remember as a small child. And even during my younger years as a teenager, people seem to have more time and be more friendly and still take care of business, which provided a quality level of service. Other instances will be the college admissions process I'll use, since I've spent many of my professional career years in higher education. It seemed to be, at some point in my professional career, a roadside service. You come in, you take a tour, here's your itinerary, go left, go right, do this, do that, sign your name, and $60,000 to $1 million later, your college elected individual, and you've been accepted to this particular college or university. Congratulations. And so I, in those years, really wanted to make sure that I gave people a quality experience versus a roadside service. And because I felt that the roadside service, while you may have been able to see 20 people that day, but if you were to dial it back and ask those individuals what their experiences were in your roadside service experience that you provided as a business, those individuals may say that they felt rushed, they felt pressed. There was a sense of urgency, kind of like when you sign up for a timeshare. Anyone familiar with those particular industries? Roadside service, and they may throw you a meal and you might have some shrimp, but they're definitely not doing any filet mignon. Continental breakfast sounds familiar. Those things to me are considered time wasters. And so I no longer spend time with those things. My time is spent with things that are very intentional, and I find that I'm more happier because I no longer find the time to spend in those particular environments or dwell in those particular spaces. And so I became more conscious of that. So here's what I'm encouraging my listeners out there, and thank you again for taking this time with me today. But I really want to encourage you to sit and think about, during the course of your life, where could you have allowed someone not to steal time for in your life? Perhaps it was a friendship, a relationship, a family member, a event that you had attended, but just think about where you're spending your time. And in some cases, it could be perhaps some time that you're spending on Twitter, perhaps, or social media. And so I don't know if there's an app, and I'm sure someone has made one over a period of years, or at least I hope they have, about maybe, and I know Instagram does this. They set a time that you can spend on Instagram, which I appreciate. It's under 30 minutes for me. And that allows you to maximize real relationships and maximize real opportunities and maximize real potential, because you're setting an allotted time to spend in those places. Another way to do that is dinner out with your girlfriends. It's a 2-hour, not a 20-hour day. A phone call with your friends. It's a 15 to 20 minute phone call, not a 3 to 6 hour phone call. It's a conversation face to face for visiting. You know, those things where people say, let's have company or let's talk. And it's an hour and not 10 hours. Those kinds of things. Sounds familiar to anyone? So I hope that this information is pivotal to you in your life, because I really wish you peace and blessings on how to get some of your time back in your life and occupy that space doing more positive things that promote wealth and health and love and joy in your life, and not time wasting. because there are so many time wasters out there. It's like me, I enjoy the news and I enjoy watching the news with my spouse. However, I turn that dial off at a certain time. I do not spend my entire day with a backdrop of the news playing, because for me, it doesn't promote any positive energy. And in many instances, it allows stress to come into my space during days that I need to be creative. So for me, a time saver is, for many years, listening to jazz music or classical music or opera and various types of calming music during my day, and perhaps podcasters, because those things actually are like radio talk. They remind me of radio talk. And I loved that when I was a younger person as well. And so these are things that I have done to make sure that I am properly allocating my time, and that alleviates a lot of unnecessary heartache and stress, irritation and frustration. So I no longer suffer in those areas. So I hope that my story allows you to start thinking about how this is going to be beneficial to you in your time allocations in your day, and promote more of a successful strategy with getting things that must be completed and tasks that you have to get done each day completed in an adequate and timely manner. And hopefully you can see that change some of your financial stories as well. With that being said, thanks so much for tuning in to MiThyme Motivation. You all are greatly appreciated. And as with all things, we'll talk soon.